Now, folks, I want to talk to you about what I've seen happening on our streets. I think it's been, frankly, a total farce. People getting longer sentences than paedophiles for Facebook posts, de facto blasphemy laws by the back door, and even flying an England flag near a mosque, landing you in the slammer. As Boris Johnson points out in his Daily Mail column today, under this Labour government, what's true and provable has become unspeakable. The mainstream media, craven as they are, including the BBC, Channel 4 and Sky News, or Sly News, keeps parroting Labour's Orwellian nonsense, calling illegal migration. It's been renamed, folks. It's not illegal migration anymore, it's irregular. Why are they parroting Labour lines like there's some backbench MP with a script? There by Labour Party headquarters. Let's be absolutely clear. It's not irregular, it's illegal. Labour might be confused about what a woman is, but the rest of us still know how to call a spade a spade. Right. Now, it just really struck me, that piece, when I was reading that piece, because I just thought we are losing all sense of common sense, right? We are living through the age of nonsense. And I'm deeply concerned about it. And I don't think the mainstream media should be parroting the lines that have been fed to them by the Labour Party. And frankly, I don't think the Home Office ought to be calling it irregular migration either. I mean, what are they going to do when millions of people start coming through? Because irregular migration is going to get worse. It's a phenomenon that's not going to go away. Yeah. Renee?
Well, if you start to silence people now, which is what they're doing very cleverly and very effectively, because if you only need to look at social media now and to, anyone who previously would have been outspoken to know that people are censoring themselves on this topic because they have been scared by this, waving a flag near a mosque, going to prison, putting something on Facebook that was horrific. What that woman who went to prison put on Facebook was horrific. Nobody should condone violence or damaging anyone, but should she have gone to prison when paedophiles walk free?
And she's a carer as well.
She's a carer for her own husband. So the problem that we have is that people are feeling so suppressed that it's just going to create more bubble from under the lid until eventually the saucepan explodes.
Also, practically, the prisons are full, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, yeah.
What are we doing? Do we have the space for these people?
Well, you do if you let out paedophiles.
Yeah,
right.
No, yeah. Or let off paedophiles, yeah.
Yeah, I don't bother sending them in the first place.
And which did happen earlier this week. And a lot of viewers contact me and say, I'm absolutely irate. I can't believe this is happening. But Dame Andrea, Mary Larkin says that's one thing Boris has got right, as in this column today. Now, do you think one thing he got wrong, or one thing the Conservatives got wrong, was not building enough prison capacity, for example?
I mean, we could have built more, without a doubt. But I think the key thing is we should have looked at real criminals, and I think it's beyond government there, Darren, which the problem is. I mean, in my brief time as a minister, even the civil service, we've seen at universities, it's every level of the public sector where we're seeing this wokeness and silencing of free speech. And so I think it's beyond government, because I think we need to reform the civil service, Darren, and have an American system where the top levels, so you can get your legislation through, so you're not being called a bully for actually challenging the civil servants. I think that is one of the major problems that we need to change.
Yes. Now, Nikki, bringing you in, Grumpy Grandad in our comments says, who I love, he is one of my favourites, he's always commenting. He says, people getting locked away for waving an England flag in their own nation. Keir Stalin is going too far. He might have a big majority in Parliament, but he doesn't have a big majority in the real world. Do you think he's losing the British public?
Well, let's start at the beginning with the illegal term.
Irregular.
That has been shifted to irregular. If you get on a boat and arrive in another country, that in itself is not illegal. What is illegal is whether you have the appropriate background to stay in that country, right? So if you are a legitimate refugee, you aren't and never will be illegal. If you're not processed and you've got no claim, then you'll be sent back. Right, so it's the definition is to do with the travel through the water.
So how many have been sent back?
3, apparently, to Rwanda.
Not very many.
But you can't really blame that on a new government. That 14 years of Tory rule pretty much, filled up the country because they didn't take control of immigration because the Home Office was in such a catastrophic state from the time of Theresa May.
But Labour are about to say to 100,000 almost people that have arrived here illegally, and I will continue to use that word.
But it's right, that's wrong under
It's
international
not.
law,
It's
Darren.
not.
It is the UN.
In the
It is wrong.
1971 Immigration Act, it says that if you do not turn up to this country with the proper papers to actually say you have a right to be here, like a visa act,
Absolutely.
etc.,
It's literally where you draw
are
the line
committing an
and where you
illegal act.
cross the water.
Well, I
Getting-
draw a line at the border, and you
Right,
can
okay,
sort
well,
of-
maybe you just need to shift it forward into the sea, because that's the only difference. We're literally talking about that.
I would shift it to France and leave it there.
Oh,
The
completely.
point is, Darren, if you lived in this country under Stalinist conditions,
Stalin.
actual Stalinist conditions, you would do anything to seek refuge somewhere else. You would do anything to protect your family.
What, in
And
France?
If
you were in France?
when people get on boats and decide to land somewhere, they do it out of
But
desperation.
they're mainly economic migrants. You
Right,
see
but
them
what-
with Apple iPhones, don't you? And
Okay,
it's usually young blokes,
technically
isn't it? Yeah.
gifters. People have Apple iPhones
Why are
everywhere
they
in the
throwing
world.
their
It's many
identity
young
into the
blokes,
sea?
though, isn't it?
Yes, and that's the point that I do agree with you on, that we should pause all single young men being allowed in and only let women and children in.
Oh, okay.
But there
after that.
aren't. But there aren't any of those.
Well, there are plenty out. They're all stuck back at home, not
What do
being
you do
looked
with them when they arrive
after
at
because the
shore?
men
They
are on the
don't have a passport.
boat.
You can't send them back. Where are you going to send them to? You don't know where they've come from. They don't have a
That's what,
passport.
sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Right, so these young men who you think should not be in the country,
Yeah.
you just agreed that. Where,
Well, we don't know. We don't know if they've got. We've
What
got
do you do with them?
We don't know if they've got a legal claim or not until you process them.
Well,
That's
no.
the whole point.
Process them if they throw away their documents
Yeah,
and won't
that's what
say
I'm
where they
saying.
come from.
Deliberately, yeah.
Exactly.
But that's fine. If they deliberately have no evidence that they've got a legal right to stay in the country, fine, send them back.
But they should have stayed in France, though.
Yeah, but human nature is to try and survive no matter what your condition. And you've got to accept that if you were living under...
But we're soft-touch Britain, so
if you
they're
thought you were
swarming here.
If you thought you were living in conditions that were terrible for you, your future, you would take a chance.
I would quite go and like to live in America,
Yes.
but they won't let me.
Well,
Yeah, they won't let me either. I've been kicked out of America and Australia, where all my family live. I can't get a visa to be with
Yeah,
my family.
but-
I mean, it's just the world.
Christine says, get Nikki to answer that question. If they have no papers, no documents whatsoever, and they turn up and they say, well, I'm from Afghanistan, right? I was a translator for the British Army. How
That
the
should
hell
be
do you
very
put-
easy to check out, though.
How?
Because we've got so much information available to us
nothing. You don't-
through authorities. If somebody's had a legitimate job, right, in a ministry, you can check that within half an hour. You just get on the phone
So we
and
call
you
up
ring.
the Taliban and
It
we say,
takes...
excuse me.
No, but that's what I'm saying. If they've got a legitimate reason, you'll be able to find that out extremely quickly.
Nikki,
And
I
if
like
they
your-
Too hard to prove.
If they
Too
don't
hard to
have
prove.
them-
Land.
Why do we have the internet if it's not for connecting the
Well,
whole
the Taliban
world?
aren't sat there on the internet, are
So
they?
you're presuming the majority of single young men that come to this country are terrorists?
No.
No, they're economic migrants.
assuming that.
Right.
Economic
I think
migrants.
there will be terrorists among them.
Yes.
Well, there's terrorists. There are homegrown terrorists. The problem in this country is second generation
But the homegrown
terrorists.
terrorists, we actually know something about. We know.
Well, we
absolutely
don't. That's the
nothing
whole point.
about
We
these
don't
people.
know about them.
So we don't know
That's why
about them,
couldn't
but we
stop
know
the
plenty
Manchester
about people
bombing.
coming in from France.
I said we can find out if we could be bothered. The Home Office has got this insane backlog of applications to process. It's not fit for purpose. It's never been fit for purpose ever since Theresa May got her hands on it. And that's the issue. This is the legacy of the Tories mismanagement.
going back
It's not
to
right or
Tories-
it's
Oh, well,
not
hang on. We
yet.
have to let Andrea answer that. That was.
But
tackle.
is actually the Home Office civil servants. I mean, I've actually asked the Prime Minister. I said that I want to ensure that that the crime stats in the UK is published per nationality. Because I think that's important.
But it is-
It's not all of it.
You
Not
can
all
look
of
at
it.
the
No,
prison- you can
no.
look at prison statistics
No,
to
it's
find out
not.
nationality.
It's not. And I think we need to know where. And we should not be importing crime and criminals into our country.
No.
So we need stringent checks,
Well,
and we shouldn't let them leave France. Actually,
I think we need
And
to
also,
stop.
back to Darren's point, we're not even allowed to discuss this now. So if we...
Well, yeah, because we're having the discussion. You can't say that.
at the moment,
Normal
yeah.
everyday people are not allowed now on social media, in their WhatsApp groups, to discuss their fears, their genuine fears.
Which is completely legitimate. But the other thing I would say is being married to an immigrant with a mixed-race child and all my family are Muslim, please think about the real-world repercussions on people when you talk down about immigrants, because it affects everyday lives.
Right, we'll have to leave that there.
Cast your mind back to the general election and the general election campaign. It might feel like an eternity ago. But what was the big mantra of the Labour government, or the Labour Party at that time? Change, right? The era of sleaze and cronyism, that was over. Labour is going to come in, Keir Starmer, roll up his sleeves, and we're in the sunlit uplands of a Labour government. What do we actually have happening now, right? Let me just read you a couple of names. Jess Sargent, Ian Caulfield, Emily Middleton. Now, you might not know who they are, but I guarantee you Labour does, right? These people have been donating money to the Labour campaign. They are well embedded in the network, the SPAD network. They are insiders. And now they have massive jobs at the top of the civil service, all of them. Some of them are director generals, right? How have they ended up there? Is it because of their merits? Or is it because they know the right person, they've sent the right guy the right cheque for the right amount, and now here they are, making decisions over propriety and ethics when they're supposed to be completely impartial? What I see here is a completely undermining of the civil service impartiality. And it's the exact thing that Labour said would not happen when they were elected. And it's taken a month. Yeah. So I think it reeks of cronyism and sleaze.
No, it does. I agree with you. It does. And actually, the vetting committee said, well, we haven't heard anything about it. We didn't know anything about these donations. No. And you just have to say, well, hang on a minute. The Labour Party said that they were going to clean up the Tory Act that had just been here for over a decade. And now, well, they're just as culpable as they said the Tories were.
And alongside that, they've got Sue Gray in the biggest position of power that anyone could have in that government, campaigning for her own little pet project in Ireland.
I thought you meant Sir Keir Starmer.
Or his son, who's now in government,
You know I like Ed Miliband a lot, and he caught my eye again this week when he actually came out and showed his completely fake empathy for people who will suffer this winter with higher energy bills. Labour have already broken promises that are going to cause that. So in the election, Labour were very clear that when they came into power, they would reduce our energy bills by £300 a year, which is brilliant, isn't it? Apart from the fact that actually they're going to increase by £150. And if you're one of the pensioners who've had their winter fuel allowance stolen, that will be £500, just £500. Another potentially fatal lie. So yesterday they rolled out Ed Miliband to talk to us about why it was happening and show some empathy. And he said he really understands that families will be worried this winter. He doesn't understand. Of course he doesn't. None of them do. What he did is he tried to explain why energy bills would be higher, and he blamed Ukraine, and he blamed the last Tory government, of course. But what he didn't do was talk about the effect that net zero subsidies are having on our bills, and this crazy rush to net zero at breakneck speed, come whatever may. And this is the nub. Bills are high because we are paying for the renewables race with the subsidies that are put on bills. Even if you don't use any energy, you still get a great big bill because you've got to pay for it. Miliband has been described in Unheard this week as German because he's not learning from the 14 years of failed net zero policies in Germany that have not decreased their bills at all, but it has completely deindustrialised Germany and got rid of all of the jobs that go with it. They stopped fracking and made themselves really susceptible and not energy secure. So what have we done, Miliband? Well, we've actually stopped any new oil licences so that we can't get any oil out of the sea and make ourselves sustainable. Basically, this net zero monster is a cult, and Labour are completely embedded in it, and they don't care about us.
I say Miliband will make Britain moribund. That's what he's going to do. Now, I think we've only got a couple of minutes on this debate, so we're going to rattle through. But Nikki, do you want to take us away on what Renee said and offer some pro-greenery takes?
Well, I feel sorry for Ed Miliband because he was the one that was meant to roll out the great green British energy policy that was cancelled just at the last minute before the election, if you remember. I actually feel that I agree entirely that we are moving too quickly with net zero. All you have to look at is what happened at Port Talbot and the fact that Keir Starmer did not turn up. And the business owners themselves were saying, we can roll out slower and we can keep jobs if we just, slow it down a little bit. But you have to accept that if you want a world for your children and your grandchildren to be able to live in, net zero is necessary. And actually, we're going to even have more economic migration and, migrants come to this country because their lands are full of water.
But for the last 22 years that we've been installing renewables, 17 of those electricity prices have gone up. It doesn't work. It's net zero. It's a way to control people.
That's to do with greedy energy companies. Labour's got the power to put a cap on.
It's just a
energy
way
prices.
to tax people. I'm a conservative. I believe that people should choose how to heat their homes and what cars to drive.
So, Adam, the problem is,
Yeah,
right,
I agree.
Labour are going to ensure that the oil and gas that we already have in the North Sea, and oil and gas that we're going to need for years and years and years to come,
Stays there.
well, it's going to leave. Even the ones that are currently operating with licences, they're going to say the market is too...
we'll just
people
end up
like Nicky are
importing it.
suggesting that, we should just put a cap on all of it. It's just not viable to
But it's about the pace of change. All you do is you redeploy the people that are working in those industries into renewables. It's about yes,
So
why
you lose
not?
those jobs in the short term, and also
You don't lose them. You just move them through trade.
and then we just end up importing it anyway. We end up importing
Where
our
are all
energy. So
those
we're
people
sacrificing
from
our energy
Port Talbot
independence for what?
I don't know. They're all unemployed, and I made that point.
I don't think China or India
I made
can,
that point.
I say let's start fracking and let's get the prices down for the consumer.
Saudi Arabia, why would they not set up solar panels and use that and become the solar panel leader of the world? We can't do that in rainy old Blighty. Why the hell would China not have an advantage over actually being able to manufacture this green steel that people keep speaking about when they have got energy prices that are cheap as chips? None of it makes sense.
And they're making all of our solar panels.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And guess what? You have to replace these things, but
Every
I'm going to have
20
to
years.
move on. We're running out of time, I beg you.